who was here last with Carlene? She really put on a good presentation. I'm kind of sad she's not here today. So Richard and I did a little changing up, and it was too hot. Richard and I decided it was too hot to go out and take pictures of armyworms and pastures. So we said, well, why don't we just piggyback off Carlene's program since everybody liked it so much. So that's where we're going to begin today. And we got a little camo instead of the pink. You know, we changed it to camo. Got rid of Carlene's name. Got mine up there. So we're ready to go. Dale can tell you what this is. It's a copperhead. Dale might not want me telling everybody, but Dale got bit by one last week. This week. When? Monday? Thursday. She got bit. She spent the day in the hospital. The same day that she got bit, I was working around the back patio, moving some pots and stuff, and it was kind of weedy, and I got this guy. So, when you're messing with your pots and there's weeds around, they're out. They're out and about. So before you put your hand down there, make sure that you know what you're doing and be looking for these guys, because with the dead grass and stuff, they're really, really, really hard to see. But I did see that guy, and I was weed whacking at the time, so we whacked him to death. Okay, as everybody knows that I propagate things. Hibiscus is one of the easiest. It's a Confederate Rose, which is the hibiscus family, but it's one of the easiest plants to propagate. And I give some away, I sell some, take donations for some. But this was one that was at the feed store for $19. Mine are basically free because I propagate. Mine don't look exactly like that, but neither did that one that had the tag. It wasn't flowering, but it looked real good. So when you get the opportunity to propagate or go to a class and take propagation, you can really save some money on plants and gift them and whatever you want to do with them. There's all the cuttings I took off this Confederate Rose bush or tree before the freeze. As soon as I heard the weatherman say freeze, I was out there cutting stalks off. I did not cut it all the way back to the ground, which you can, and maybe save the tree. But these are my spares. In case my mother plant dies, I have plants to replace them. And then if I don't, if she lives, I don't need them, then some lucky people get them. You root them in the water. You see I had them in a bucket of water. Put them in the pump house. My pump house is insulated. It stays probably 60 degrees all the time. This is what your roots look like after about a month. So you overwinter them inside the pump house or wherever you want to put them. And when they get this way, you can pot them. But you have to be careful because the roots, you see how small they are, and you can damage them. So you don't want to pack the dirt in there. You just kind of want to put it in there and then soak them and then add dirt if you need to. This is one of the hibiscus that I had after Carlene's program. I got real excited about them. I'm not a big hibiscus person, but I want you to look at that root ball that came out of that when I pulled it out of the pot. See how tight that root ball? Has anybody ever shotgun one into a hole? You pull it out of that pot and you just stick it in there without spreading the roots? Nobody ever has? We're not telling anyhow. Well, when I pulled that thing out, I said, man, oh man, it's, you know, it's just like, it didn't have anywhere else to go. So can somebody tell me what happened to that pot?
The roots grew and burst it.
No, hit it with a lawnmower. But that's the idea, Carol. Yeah, your pot will get so, it will actually force the pot, crack it open, but I hit that one with a lawnmower.
Did you hurt your lawnmower?
No. But I expanded that pot for sure. The pot drains real well. Okay, so I had that. So This is where I'm spreading the roots out very generally so I don't break any of the big roots, the big main roots. You don't want to damage those. Same thing about putting it into a pot. You don't want to shove it down in there because you got all these fine roots. So be tender with it. There's that pot again. This is one of the flowers that have come on my hibiscus since we went to the Lunch and Learn, and Bobo's had them on sale or whatever. So I bought some of these. They're called marshmallow or something. Yeah, huge flower, 6 or 7 inches across. Huge flower, beautiful. And they only last a couple days. I think Carlene said one day. They last a couple days. And a friend of mine actually makes some kind of lemonade out of hibiscus flowers. Because she said they don't last but a day, so she picks them and makes some kind of drink out of it. I didn't ask her for the recipe. That's another one. It was just blooming like crazy. So it liked what I did with it. This is a Confederate Rose. This is what your flowers look like. They'll start off white, they'll turn to pink, and then they'll turn a deeper red. And they will freeze in the winter. And they get so big you can't, it's really hard to protect them. So you're going to lose it or you get lucky. And that's one. This is 1 year's growth. That's 1 year's growth. You can see it's as tall as the trees. So what I do when I hear freeze, I start taking these cuttings about 1 foot in length. As many as I want. Some people cut these down to the ground and then put mulch over it to make sure it comes back in the winter. I don't do that anymore because I lost a big one. I trained one into a tree. I like things in it like a tree. And it died. One winter it died. And I didn't have any cuttings because it was just one tree, a single trunk tree. This is just a talk thing. I bought some zinnias at Bobo's. They had them on special. $4 or $5. I don't know what it was. I just bought a ton load of them, planted them around, and then I had some left. I just put them in a pot. It's probably the most beautiful plant that I have. Just some discarded zinnias in a pot. It's just beautiful. There's my cow. She thinks that she's looking at me like there's something in that gray box. I put creek feed. That's a calf creek feeder. The cows can't get in, but the calves can. And she was just kept looking at me, standing on the other side of that thing like, okay, I know it's in here, but I can't get it open. I had a question at the last Lunch and Learn about trees, and one lady talked about they planted some young trees, and they were looking real bad. And she thought that they were watering too much, so it was at the 4th of July. So she asked me about it, what did I think? She quit watering because she thought they were watering too much, her husband, so she told him to quit watering. So she hadn't watered in a couple of weeks. I said, you know, it's 100 degrees outside, so I said, you probably weren't watering enough. And then we continued on the discussion. I said, take a screwdriver or a shank, stick it down in the ground about 1 foot away from the tree and see how far it's wet. And that way you can tell if you're getting down to the roots. So she was going to do that. And then a little further discussion, found out that she planted them in clay. One of them was in clay. Well, that just acts like a bulb. So it could be getting too much water. So I told her to check it with a screwdriver or a shank, find out about it. But if it's planted in clay, she probably might as well dig it up and move it to another location before it dies. So I got to these are my trees I bought several months ago. And it's too hot to plant them, so I've repotted them, bumped them up to the next size until September, October when I'll plant them. The other day I noticed this one was turning a little brown. This is nice and green, same type of tree, nice and green. I said, man, something's going on. And they're in little small pots. I haven't bumped those up yet because those were two that I was going to plant. So I said, well, I just talked to that woman about watering and all this stuff. So I broke the pot, pulled it out of the pot. And it was not real tightly bound, but the outside was so moist. So when I started pulling the roots apart, the inside was dry as a bone. and I water them every day and really, really well. So that told me that that thing was not getting the water. So I went on and bumped it up and spread the roots out because that ball was just so tight and it wasn't allowing the water to get into the middle to where the taproot was and going down. So hopefully that will make a turn. The limb was still green, so I hope everything kind of works out. That is the tree right there. I don't know if you can see the wet here, but here it was dry dirt where I pushed this open right here. You can see how dry it is. This was wet around here, down here, but this was dry. This is the inside of the tree, so it wasn't getting any water to the main tree. Okay, so we got that. We're going to do a quick drawing. Richard's got some names there. We're going to give one of these plants away.
Cassie Ferguson.
Cassie Ferguson's not here.
Karen Say.
Karen Say's not here.
Joe Fran Edwards.
Joe Fran's not here.
Jeannie Whitsitt.
Jeannie Witts is not here.
Laura Parrish.
Oh, Laura's not here. Well, I guess we'll just we'll hold those off for a little while later. Can't believe people don't show up to my seminar. Make sure they all know they missed out on the plant. Okay, now Richard and I are having a little fun with y'all. I hope y'all did learn something on that. Carlene did have a fantastic program last time, and I appreciated it a lot. And I'm the proud owner of several hibiscus now. I don't think I'm quite to her extent yet, but anyhow. So we're going to talk about armyworms today. Who's had armyworm? They're bad. They're bad news. Every year, it seems like I get armyworms. I don't know why. Well, I know why. I have a hay field, and usually after my first cutting, or sometimes before, they will invade. And I do not own a sprayer, so I have to rent one, or borrow one, or beg one, or something. Generally, I have not went out and purchased one yet, because everybody tells me, "Oh, don't use mine, use mine." Well, sometimes they're not available for me to use. So sometimes I get myself in a pinch. Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, back to this. Can I go back, Richard?
Yep.
Oh, this drawing is done by a little girl that showed some of our longhorns, and now she's in some kind of art institute in Houston. She got accepted to this fancy art institute in Houston. So she was home for the summer, so I said, you know, I need a mean-looking armyworm. So trying to tell a 19-year-old young lady what an armyworm looks like, you know, and I had to say, I want it to have some big teeth, you know, and so she sent me this thing that had some little teeth. And I said, no, I'm big, I want mean, you know. And so anyhow, this is that's a professionally done armyworm. Okay, we're going to watch a video. I love this video. We're going to start. Or go ahead.
You push the button.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the garden. Today, a buddy of mine, Jay Ivy, called me and said that he thinks he's got armyworms in his yard. So we're going to go out there to his house and check it out. But Jay, tell me, how did you notice it and when?
Well, a couple of days ago, I thought I started seeing brown spots, and it looked like somebody might have weed-eated in the grass a little bit. And then I started looking, and there was little worms. So this morning, when I come out, I started looking at the grass, and the grass was moving everywhere.
Do you feel like you're in
And there's not hundreds, and there's not thousands, there's literally millions. This yard will probably be gone in 2 days.
Some of the things you need to know about your armyworm when you do notice them in your yard, because here in Georgia, we'll start seeing them around June, but August is when you're really mainly going to notice them because they've grown to a larger population. But if you want to understand about your armyworms, you do need to know a little bit about the biology of them. And what happens is from more southern areas than here, we'll get flights of them, of the moth into Georgia. And they are all over the United States. But we'll get the flights in here in Georgia, and they'll start to lay their eggs on the blades of the grass. They'll lay their eggs on your outdoor furniture, any kind of light colored rocks. And within about 2 weeks, the caterpillars hatch out and they start eating on your grass. And that's what you're noticing, Joe.
Yeah, they're eating.
And usually it is around August when you'll notice them. They attack hay fields and pastures, and so your yield on your hay or your foraging in your pasture is going to be knocked down to just about nothing, because they will eat the blades all the way down to the crown. So there's a few things you can do to take care of that, and today Jay is going to use a Bayer product, and it contains imidacloprid. That's going to be your active ingredient in it, and he's just going to spray them. And the best time to spray is either early in the day or late in the evening. But Jay got a big old sprayer and he's going to spray them.
I'm going to spray now and I'm going to spray again this afternoon.
Alright, if you look in this area right here, you can literally see some of the damage that has been done where the armyworm eats the blades down to the crown of the grass. It totally denudes the grass, and it should be okay. It usually takes a couple, 3 weeks for your grass to come back out. But normally it's going to be okay. It doesn't usually kill it all the way. But you can see how it just makes it look ugly. Bare spots.
Oh, now I went and got the stuff. This actually came from Home Depot. It says it's good for armyworms. It says it makes 80 gallons. I got a 35-gallon sprayer right here that does about 6 foot, and I'm going to coat my yard real good with it right now, and then I'm going to wait till later this evening and give it another good coat.
Now, a good way to find out if you have the armyworms in your pasture or your yard or your hayfield, you can actually go out there with like a 5-gallon bucket of soapy water, just like dish soap and water, and you pour it on top of the ground, starting about June. And what will happen is the worms that are right up under the soil, they will literally come up out of the ground because they don't like the soap. And that way you can tell if you have the worms. You might want to try that in June and again in July and again in August before it gets too bad. And if you end up having the worms in your hayfield or your pasture, you really want to pay close attention, because it will take about a week for them to totally eat the grass all the way down to the crown. And the best way to control them that way is to use a product that is called Lanate, or you can just use 7. I would suggest using those 2 in your pasture or your hayfield. If you want to use something in your yard, you can use anything with the active ingredient in it called imidacloprid or acephate, and that should take care of your problems. One of the things you'll notice on your armyworm is they start out they're small, but they're going to be really, really green as a younger caterpillar. And as they get older, they do get darker, and their stripes become usually more apparent. And the stripes run from the head all the way to the rear. And they do come from a moth. When the armyworm moth does lay her eggs, those egg masses can contain several hundred baby worms in them. And each female can deposit several of these clusters. And the eggs are usually green at first, but they'll change to brown later on. Temperatures do influence the period of time until the eggs will hatch, and when it's a rainier weather, the caterpillars actually enjoy this type of weather. And if you watch how the armyworm acts, when they're younger, they tend to congregate in one area, but as they age, they do scatter to look for food. And they feed mostly during the day. When the armyworm is full grown, they're about 1 1/3 inches in length. And they can be tan or green or black. And when they are in the larval stage, it takes usually about 12 days before they hatch. And once we get closer to the fall, usually a frost will kill these larvae, but it's best to take care of them in your yard. And you do need to watch for them every year. Your armyworms usually love your warm season grasses like Bermuda grass or St. Augustine grass, and others can be attacked. But the cool season grasses that they like is like bluegrass and ryegrass and your fine fescues and your bent grass. Those are your preferred cool season turf grasses. Now, like I said earlier, your armyworms will eat the blades of the grass all the way down to the crown. But if you have a newly established lawn or turf or sod, they can actually kill it. But most of the time, if your yard is already established, they're not going to kill it out completely. But it will take a couple, 3 weeks for your yard to bounce back, and you'll start noticing a little bit more green where it's starting to come back. Appreciate you watching today, and I hope you learned a little something about your armyworms. And we're going to help Jay keep an eye on this problem, and we'll let you know how it goes. And thanks for watching. Here back at the garden.
I looked at it, I don't know how many videos I looked at, and that one, I just love that Georgia peach talking, that girl talking, and then Jay on that lawnmower with the big sprayer, you know, a 6-foot sprayer. Can you imagine somebody doing a hayfield with Jay's lawnmower? And I said, man, that's Centerville right there. You know, that's Centerville. You can see David Bradley out on a little RTV with a 10-foot sprayer doing 11 acres. Only took me about 3 hours, but we got it done. But I looked at a lot of videos, and that one really kind of hit home. And telling what an armyworm looks like, when you go out in your pasture or your yard and you see a bunch of worms, you don't want to have to really do a whole lot of thinking. It's going to probably armyworms if they're in a group or a cluster, or your yard's disappearing. So there's different ways to tell, and the best thing is just look it up, and you can see the little Y on their heads. I can guarantee you, I don't need to look at a Y on their head. I can look at my pasture and I can tell, you know, they're there. Used to, when we lived down south, and I had a guy that took care of my hayfield and watched the cows, he would go over there every day, and so he called me one time and said, hey, you got armyworms on your pond side of your pasture. I'm down in Texas City. You know, okay, what can you do? Well, I can spray them. I said, okay, we'll spray them. So he went and bought the stuff. You know, he was born and raised up here. He knows all about it. So that was pretty easy when he was taking care of things. If you see these guys right here in your yard or your pasture, you might want to take a look. One of your first signs you have armyworms are egrets or crows, usually crows. Egrets will follow the cows around, so it's kind of hard to tell what they're doing. But these guys, they don't follow cows around. They come in for the armyworms. So if you see a group of these dudes, go out and look at your yard, or whatever. They'll be on the grass, just like she was showing. They come to the top, and then when you walk up, they feel the vibrations and they'll fall off and drop to the ground. And you'll see them. I mean, they're out there, and then all of a sudden you see these things, and all of a sudden you don't see them because they're falling off on the ground. That is not an armyworm. That is a Bahia grass seed. But sometimes it really alarms me when I pull up into the pasture and I'm looking out over the pasture trying to see if I have armyworm, and I see these black things up at the top of the grass, and it's little clusters of Bahia grass that I don't like in my coastal field. So it's not supposed to be there. And I see these black things, so I go, oh. So I get out of the car and I walk halfway across the 11-acre pasture and find out it's Bahia grass. It's going to seeds. So.
What's the life expectancy of them, you know, as far as if they don't take kids?
Until they mature, I don't know what they turn into, but they just keep eating. And if you don't respond, she said like a week, they will eat a 10-acre pasture in a day. They don't. It doesn't take them.
I knew all that. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, how.
Well, one thing I found out when I had them, and I had them early last year, they're called fall armyworms. I had them real early last year. I mean, I was shocked. And so I went to the feed store. This is my hay field. This is what my hay field should look like when I look out over it. Can you tell where the armyworms were? That's my hay field that you just saw. And from up by the barn, they went out that way.
How fast, David?
Fast.
How fast did it do it?
Well, when I noticed it, it was probably maybe overnight, not even overnight, probably early that morning. I mean, it was infested. And so.
How many times a year can they have?
I had them twice.
You have them twice.
It depends on the weather conditions, but you can have them, I've known some people have them 3 or 4 times, but I had them twice. I've never had them more than twice. Most people have them once, some people don't have them at all. Bahia grass is not the preferred grass they like to eat. They like to eat coastal. She said St. Augustine. I have never seen one on St. Augustine. I've never seen them in the Bahia grass either. They like the tender growth of these hay fields. I had just probably cut it or going to cut it. It was regrowth, so it's real tender. And all you have is a little stick left.
Linda, Google says their lifespan is anywhere between 7 to 21 days.
7 to 21 days.
A whole lot.
Their adult life,
Yeah.
7 to 21 days.
And
Average is 10.
When you go to the feed store like I did, and I recommend that you do that, and I told him I have armyworms, and he said, okay, I'm going to sell you a product. It's an off-brand of 7, liquid 7. So I took it. I rented a sprayer from them. They had a big, long boom sprayer, like 20 foot, that you put on the back of your truck. Since I don't own a sprayer, I said, man, this is it. Great. All I had to do is hook it to a battery. Man, I'll knock that 11 acres out in no time. The motor went out on it 2 trips around the pasture, the perimeter of the pasture, and the motor went out on the sprayer. So then the story goes on. Grasshoppers are another thing. This is Trapper Dave. I don't know, a lot of y'all don't know Trapper Dave, but he is a gopher expert. Mole and gopher, mostly gophers. So I called Trapper Dave in to consult with him about some of this video stuff. So if you have armyworms, what do you do? What do you do with them? Yeah, I've got them. Well, what am I going to do? If you're from the city, like a lot of us are, it's kind of new to you when you go out there and your hay field's disappearing. And you can get a chair and you can sit out there in your pasture and you can watch them every day if you don't have anything else to do. But you'll end up looking like this if you're out there long enough. You can cut your hay field. One time I had them and the guy just happened to say, well, you want me to cut it? And I said, usually I have to beg him and give him stuff and plead with him. And he said, yeah, I'll cut it. Well, obviously he didn't have anything to do. So he cut it. They don't like, once it's cut, they're gone, they leave. So we were able to cut this and I didn't have to spray. So that saved me a lot of money and time and effort. The other thing you can do, if you got cows, turn your cows in on them. You got a bunch of cows?
Or they do, they make them go away.
Well, they'll just eat the grass, and the armyworms won't have anything to eat. So that's an extreme. I mean, if you had 40 cows on 2 acres, you could wipe it out, and you wouldn't have any more grass anyhow. But the armyworms wouldn't get it. At least your cows would get it. Okay, so the big sprayer went out that I rented from the feed store. So Kathy Choate's husband, Joe Choate, has this little sprayer. It's a 10-foot sprayer with a, I can't remember if that's a 30 or 60 gallon little drum. And it's a homemade rig. It works real well. Put it on the back of your RTV, slide it into your hitch, put your hook to your battery, turn it on, and you go. You know how long it takes you to do 11 acres with that? A A long time. Very long time. But I did it. I mean, I'm sure that people were probably driving down Highway 7 looking and go, what is the idiot doing out there? You know, is he fertilizing or what? No, I'm killing armyworms. And they were right up close to the barn where they started. Coming down, they would start up here and come down. And you can kind of see the grass. It's more of a stem than it is grass. I've used Joe's sprayer like twice now. And every time I say something about buying one, Kathy and Joe say, no, we'll add on to it. You know, he's really talented, a welder, can do anything. And so every time I do something on Facebook, she sees it, don't buy a sprayer, don't buy a sprayer, Joe's going to fix it. So, I don't know, I have to just go buy one. You can wait for a freeze. You can freeze them. Everybody remember that freeze? Well, at the time we didn't have armyworms, so it didn't do much good. But you can wait for a freeze, or you won't have any hay left. And this, you can buy these lick tubs. They're about $140 a piece now. See that little moth? 2 moths? I caught 2 moths in my lick tub. So you can trap the moths and you don't have to worry about armyworms. Just buy these lick tubs for $140 a piece. Put in your pasture, they stick right to it. And then the cows will lick them off. So you get a little protein. That's an expensive way to do it. So I call old Trapper Dave in for some more advice. And he brings us little magnifying glass and he's looking for armyworms for me. He's very expensive. I would not call in Trapper Dave unless you got a pretty hefty pocketbook. It's because of his knowledge. Very knowledgeable guy. He'll come out. He'll monitor your field. He might even sit in that chair that was out in the pasture. I don't know. He's pretty active. The armyworms have a hard time finding him because he's camouflaged. He looks just like a huge armyworm. If you look at it, you can't hardly see any skin on that man. So it's really hard. You can pray. If all that other stuff don't work, you pray. You pray they'll go away. And one guy told me when I called him, he said, well, you know, if it rains enough, they'll drown. I said, okay. Is that before they eat my field or after? Exactly when are you going to bring the rain? You can't tell. Well, there's a chance of rain tomorrow. I said, like, who am I talking to? My field will not be there tomorrow. It will be gone. So that was not an option. And what's really interesting is when I was doing the sprayer, the little RTV sprayer, I knew where they were, but I really couldn't see them until you started going in. And the vibration of the sprayer, they feel the vibration before you get to them. And you can see them dropping off, going down to the ground to protect yourselves. So it's like raining little worms you just have in front of you. And they're a lot harder to catch spraying. So you have to have a good sprayer. Okay, what do you do about it? If you don't do anything, Trapper Dave said you're throwing your money away. Just, you got to do something. Or, you know, you got cows or you want a nice yard. That guy's, he's good. He's intelligent. Gas, the price of gas. So, people who have hay fields or whatever, spraying or whatever costs a lot of money. So you've got money invested. If you don't do it, take care of the armyworms or any other varmint or grasshoppers, then you're wasting your money. Fuel is one of the big things right now. A lot of people didn't fertilize this year, didn't fertilize their hay fields. So if you're buying hay, be cautious of where you buy it from, because people did not fertilize because of the cost of fertilizer and fuel. So therefore, you're buying hay that's probably 3 or 4% protein, where normally it would be 8 to 12, to some good ones are higher than that. I haven't won the hay contest. Well, I did that one year. I won the hay contest. I got the certificate, the proof. Okay, fertilizing. Okay, fertilizer cost me twice as much this year as it had in previous years. I went ahead and fertilized I could not get chicken litter like a lot of the big ranches can get chicken litter, but I'm small, so they won't come out and put chicken litter out on usually on small. So I was forced to either don't fertilize or pay the price to fertilize. So if I get armyworms, you can bet I'm going to do everything I can to kill them, because I've got a lot invested in that hay field. That's some hay. So I've got hay right now where a lot of people don't have hay because of the drought, and so the price of hay is going up. So I feel very fortunate. I have last year's hay that I usually sell when I get a cutting. I only got one cutting this year, so I'm keeping my last year's hay, which was disappointing to some people who usually buy my hay from last year. I sell it. If I don't have it, if the armyworms eat it, I can't sell it. So I can't make any money back to pay for my fertilizer or fuel. I lined my pastures last year. It was costly. So you lose the income that way. Don't you hate it? Have you ever seen this? This is a tree at Walmart. And they cut the top. They cut the top out of a tree. They have little pots and they cut the top. Have you ever seen that? When you're looking at trees? Do you buy them? I don't. It's ridiculous. Why do you cut the top out? Now I've got to form another main leader off of that tree. And every tree that I wanted and looked at, the variety, had the top cut out. So I asked a guy one time, why do you do that? Anybody know why they do it? Anybody want to guess? Storage?
Fits in the truck.
There you go. You're right.
Well, what do we have storage?
Transporting them. We're a little late with the truck. Kathleen and Peter. So they're neighbors, they can share it. So it's transporting them. They cut them so they can get them all in this truck. Well, I'm not buying them. So anyhow, that just really chews me out. It has nothing to do with armyworms or whatever. Just one of those things that we have to talk about. Another thing you're going to encounter, everybody knows, cutter ants. Oh, good old cutter ants. Well, I was doing some videoing and other things, trying to get some cutter ant things. So some of these pictures are from Tom and Carol's place. Tom called me and told me to come on down. Come on down to his house. He had a marching group of army ants going across his driveway and carrying loads of these leaves, all of these leaves. And when I got to looking at what they were carrying, those are actually kind of weeds that you don't want. So they were doing them a favor at the time, but they also, you see them?
That was the first.
See how they're moving? They all have big old stacks. It'd be like me carrying probably 1,000 pounds and trying to move. These guys are something else. There they're going across their driveway to their little holes, just in a little formation there, just moving right along. Look at the size of that leaf. There's an ant underneath that. There's a little bitty ant. He had this huge, you couldn't even see the ant. And he was just trucking along. You know? Hey. I thought, my gosh, you know. There's Carol's rose bush. They would like.
We decided that they set their watches for a certain time, and they're all marching.
Yeah. So they like rose bushes, along with the deer. But cutter ants will strip a rose bush in no time. This is at my place. All those are mounds. So if you're going to treat that group of mounds, you have to treat every hole, every mound. And there are a bunch of them. There's one right here. You can see it. There's one right there. There's one right there. And they like to put them underneath leaves or limbs. So you can't, so they're hard to see. There's probably one somewhere in here. But all of these are mounds. And this was not a real big, it looks bigger than it was. I didn't let it get that far out of control. But it will. That'll take up the whole dang thing. And a story that I heard was a guy had a big tractor and he went across one of these colonies and his tractor actually fell in. It caved in that colony. That's how their chambers underneath where the tractor was so heavy it collapsed the colony. This is what I treat. The only thing that I found. There's a lot of people that have different things. This is that stinky orthine ant bed. And this is what kills them. But you have to treat every plant. Treat it, go back a week later, treat it again because you're going to miss them. And then you'll see where they made new ones or they used the existing ones that you missed. The active ingredient, I think, is that my little Georgia Peach lady, acephate. So that's the key. If you find something with acephate in it, that's what gets them. If Noveline was here, she'd tell you for sure. That's what gets them. So this is not the only thing that you can treat them with, but this is what I found it works. It's about $11 a bottle, and a bottle goes a long way. I can treat that whole section usually with a bottle, and then go back a week later, and that particular area, and this is what I do. I make sure I get it all around the outside of the hole. All these holes. And if you've ever heard Tom Leroy talk about fertilizer, using fertilizer, don't use a little, use a lot. You're going to do it one time. I found out, I was skimping $11 a bottle. I can do half of that. I don't need all this. Guess what? Some of the places that I treated lightly didn't work. So I said, I got to spend the money to get them. So I put it heavy. Some of it blows away, whatever. But so don't skimp, or you'll be buying another bottle. But you can see all the places I treated, all the white you see, all of those. Finding the holes, watching, treating a hole, stepping aside, you'll see them. Here comes another one. They're all over the place, and they like to get underneath that grass where you can't see their mound. This right here is a come along. I want to tell you, the neighborhood that I live in, and I know some of us are from Houston and different places. If you hung a come along on a fence and left it for a week, where you came from, or even maybe where you live now, and you think it would still be there? With all the kids that go up and down the road? That come along stayed there for a week. I even thought about stealing it. It stayed there for a week. The guy was working on the fence, and he just left it hanging there. I said, man, I need to stop and tell him he needs to put that up. I never did, and it stayed there for a whole week until he got finished, and then he took it off. Amazing. I live in a good neighborhood. This is another varmint that we have. You can see him right there. I caught him in the act. Right here. There he is. I was wondering what was doing this. See my leaf down here? He's already finished that one, so he moves up to this one. But he skeletized that thing. So I actually caught him because I didn't know really what was doing, if it was a fungus type thing or what we were doing. And so I caught him in the act and put some powdered 7 on it. But you can see, and I take pretty good care of things and watch it pretty sit. So he did some damage within maybe an overnight period or something like that. And then he moves up here. There he is. And he's starting on that one. But he finished that one and that one and that one down there. So pretty voracious little guy. Just a common little worm, I guess. I don't know what he got. She's not here. I want somebody to tell me the difference between these two. Can anybody tell me the difference between these two people? They're both at a seminar at Bobo's. It was the Rose seminar, I think.
Taking notes.
Taking notes, yeah. Nope. Taking notes?
Looks like she's not even looking at plants.
So what do you have here? You have,
She's outside, the other one's inside.
you have an intern that's at Popo's taking it all in. Or all the interns or whatever, man, you're out there, you got your pencil, your notepad, you're writing down everything. Everything. And then when you get seasoned, a little bit seasoned, you're kind of like, yeah, I know that. Come in here. Yeah, it's pretty cold. Yeah. Anyhow, I asked this lady if I could use her picture, so. Paula, I didn't because I was talking good about Paula. So anyhow, she was dressed pretty anyhow. So, but anyhow, I just thought it was interesting observation that I made about, wow, interns really get into it, and then as you go and you've been to these seminars, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard Tom Leroy talk about peaches. I can do it in my sleep. But every time you learn something. Every time I went to Tom's deal, even though it was the same thing, yet I learned something new every time. So, moles. I'm not a mole expert. Trapper Dave is not a mole expert. Those are some hard little boogers to catch. There's a product that I use. You get a Tractor Supply, and they're little rubber worms, they're like gummy worms. So if you got little kids, or dogs, or cats, you don't want to use this. As a vet told me, don't bring your dog to me if the dog gets old on it. Don't bring it to me, she said. So, I use these all the time for the moles. They work. I can eliminate mold. I think I've only seen one mole above ground, dead. And that I didn't treat that. He just died of old age, come up for breath air. Like, I don't know. You don't usually see moles above the ground too often, even when you kill them. So you can use these, but if you have pets, kids, all that stuff, don't use them. There is a trap. It's a hawk called something hawk, Gopher Hawk, Mole Hawk, that one lady told me that she uses with success on the gophers. And it's a spring-loaded trap, and they go and they hit the spring, and then it has forks and just spears it. I've used about 3 different types of mole traps, and I have yet to catch one mole. But that stuff catches. That is not a gopher man. That's a gopher man. That is a cowpad. I had a person ask me about coming out and looking at their place. They had all these gopher mounds. They get gopher mounds all over. I said, well, get Trapper Dave, we'll get those gophers. We'll teach you how to get those gophers. Well, when I got out there, most of them were cow patties at a distance. So, well, I didn't tell her. I said, well, you got it to you. But, further distance too, that could look like a gopher mound from a distance, just like the ryegrass, Bahia grass seed looked like armyworm to me. From a distance, you could see it. So that's a gopher mound that's in my pasture. And I use, you see this thing sticking in there. It's a Gopher Tool. You stick it down around not directly into the mound, but around the edges of the mound, and you'll hit their tunnel. And it's trial and error. You just poke it down in the ground. It's got a sharp point down here, and you go around, and when you hit that hole, you'll know it just gives. And then it has a little lever up here. Your poison's in here. It's got a little lever. You open your little lever, shake a little bit, close it off, pull it out. And that's how you treat a gopher mound with this Gopher Tool. They're about $50 at the feed store. And then the gopher poison, and I buy little bottles at a time because I don't want it getting old or whatever. So it's about $20 or $30 for a little bottle. And it'll treat a lot. It'll treat a lot of gopher mounds. Again, if you've got pets, you've got dogs that like to dig, had a friend, he's a master gardener, he's no longer a master gardener. He had dogs that would dig these up and leave huge holes in his yard. And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, I know what you're going to do. You're going to get Trapper Dave. He's going to give you a class on how to use these traps, Gopher Traps. So I had a class and got Trapper Dave to come and teach people how to use these Gopher Traps. They're like mice traps. They go down in the hole. You have to dig the mound down until you find their hole, and then you stick these down into the hole. They're like a rat trap. And when the gopher comes, they don't like you opening their hole. They don't like sunlight. So they'll come back to bury it, to cover that hole up. And when they do, you get them. And it clamps down on them and suffocates them, and you get rid of them that way. And that's what Ty did. And Ty has some grandkids that came, and they brought some friends. So Ty taught them how to do it. They thought it was the greatest thing since peanut butter. Go out and trap these gophers. So Ty went and bought about 8 or 10 of these gopher traps, and sent the boys out every morning to go see gopher traps. And then in the evening they'd go back and they'd catch all these gophers and bring them back and say, hey, Granddad, look what I got. Hey. And so I think Ty got well over 100. He did like 40 or 60 acres because his dogs were not pinned in, so they would roam. So he couldn't poison anywhere. So he did this whole pasture over time with the gopher traps.
Now look homemade.
Well, this is Julie's gopher traps. Julie Denton was a master gardener here. She took the gopher class, Trapper Dave, and she lived a couple miles from my ranch. And they had tons of gophers, and they had 2 Dobermans that dug. So she said, I can't poison them, so I'm going to have to use gopher traps. So I went over there, and she attended the class, and I went over there to make sure she knew how to use them, how to dig it up, where to put them, how to check them. And so she had so many that her husband, he still worked at a pipeline down in the south. So he wasn't home except on weekends, and I think it was every other weekend. So he had the great idea. He made her a cart. And she would, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So she would run these traps. She would take them out, and she would sit them in the morning. 10 traps. And he made this little cart for her. And she would put it in the back of her RTV, and off she went that morning, and she would set all these traps. This is a dual trap. Right here, there's actually 3, but there's only 2 in here, 2 leads. And you'll know they're tied. They're tied. And this stake goes in the ground, and she had it flagged where she could see where she had put them. Because if you're doing a large area, you know, you could miss one or whatever. So she didn't want to run over one more or whatever. So her husband made her this little nifty cart box and put her name on there. And she was really good at catching gophers. Really good. And anybody tell me why there's, on some of these there's 1 trap. Can somebody tell me why she had 2 traps on 1?
Coming and going.
Coming and going. Usually, I use 1 trap. I find 1 hole, and that usually does it, because they're going to come back down that, usually, one way or another to cover that hole. So I don't use 2 traps. Can you tell me why there's a string attached to that trap?
Because the coons will dig that up and off.
No, but that's true. The gopher will pull that trap down into the hole. When it clamps him, remember it suffocates him, so he's alive for a little while, and he'll back out trying to get out of that trap, and you just lost $8 down that hole, because no telling where it's at. The other thing, too, and I use a little chain on mine, but 2, I was missing a couple traps one time, and I couldn't figure out where they were. I couldn't find them anywhere in the pasture. And then I finally found them over by my pond one day, which was probably several hundred yards from where the trap was set. So the coyotes, when these guys get trapped, if they don't die instantly, they let out a little stress, little moan. So it attracts varmints. So I think the coyotes were coming in there and taking my trap and pulling it out of the ground and taking it off in the woods wherever they were going. So I lost a couple traps and everything until I really got to nailing them down to where they couldn't pull them up.
David, not only coyotes, but feral hogs will pick them up too.
No feral hogs in my yard, please, or my pasture.
The hog.
Armyworms, okay. So these little tools, they sell them. You can get them online too. They're pretty nifty. Again, if you have pets and stuff like that. But this is a lot easier than running these traps. But if you got grandkids or something and you want to get rid of them, teaching them how to do this, they think it's great until they find out, until they're a little older. It's like mowing, And when you go into, I'm not going to tell you what to use. You might go talk to Richard, but I tell you to go to the feed stores and ask them, what am I going to use? Tell them what you got, what your problem is. First thing I do is I call Richard and pick his brain. And then there's so much on the market. For gophers, for moles, for armyworms. It's just overwhelming when you go trying to find something. So you really need to get some advice. When I had armyworms the last time, I was in a panic. I didn't have the sprayer broke. Called Joe. Joe was going to bring his little rig over. I was praying that RTV ran. And I went to the feed store. I had armyworms. Said, yeah, you got your liquid 7, you're good to go. $100 a bottle. So it's not cheap. Well, after the thing was over and I started researching about armyworms for this program, I noticed that it said that there are like 3 stages of armyworm. Liquid 7, or its off-brand, is for the very beginning stages. Well, I didn't know that. So what if I would have had the second stage? I just would have made them mad, made them sick maybe, and they would have kept on eating. So you need to know what size, maybe take one in with you, small one. Luckily, I hit it right. It killed them, and I just found them. But I just realized making this little program that there are different stages, 3 different stages, and there's chemicals for each different stage. So just don't go in there and, yeah, here, take that, like I did. Yeah, give me that thing, I'll kill them all. But if they would have been bigger, I would have been in for a shot. This is the mold killer. It works, but you may not want to use it. There's some more. I've used these little pellets and whatever. I haven't had any luck with these pellets. This is the Gopher Hawk that I was talking about. It's spring-loaded, works well on gophers. I've been told by some people. I have not used it myself, but some people have very good success with it, and it's not as painstaking as these little traps to set. There's Julie's little gopher trap. She's since moved to Huntsville, and she gave me her deal because she no longer was going to have to deal with gophers. So she said she was going to give me her gopher deal. And so I felt real privileged because this was, this was her custom made, and it was Julie's, and she was proud, just that she could do that, go out there and clear her field. This is the hole. When you go to sit these things, you got to dig a hole. I'm dug up the mount. I've got the hole. I'm looking down in it, and then I can see where the tunnel's at. And you take these traps, you take that trap, and you set it down inside the hole. How far down inside the hole? I go about that far. It's about as brave as I want to get. I do not want to stick my arm way down in a gopher hole, because I don't know if there's just gophers in there or not. So I put it in there about as far as I can see it. as far as the chain to take it in there. And then you just leave it. You put your stake in the ground so they can't pull it off, you leave it, you come back and check it the next day. They will come back to bury that hole. Here's my neighbor. Anybody know that guy? Now, this is Al. Al's retired, used to police, and he's retired as the chief investigator for Leon County. So he's got like 40 years police, and he's very intense. Whatever he does,
Oh my gosh.
very intense. I mean, when he mows the yard, he's, he doesn't look up. He's right here, right in front.
Goes outside at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
There were 100, not gophers, armadillos.
Armadillos, yeah. Him and Trapper Dave would get along well. So Al, I caught him the other day. I was looking across the street, and usually they're mowing. They mow like every other day. But I saw Al, and he was down on the ground, and he had his arm about that far up in that gopher hole. You know, he's not a big man, so he's a small man. And I said, what is he doing? And I said, oh, he's got to go. I said, man, I got to take my phone and get over there and get a picture. Al's got a gopher. He's doing the gopher thing. So he's got his gopher trap. You can see the gopher that's on the trap. He's got his wire. He pulled him out. It's a pretty good sized gopher. They got some claws. They got some teeth. So I'm not going down in that hole. It ain't gonna happen. I don't care if they can't bite you or scratch you or what. This boy is not going down there and putting that trap. If I can't get him up there, he's gonna live to be another day. That's my grandson. Money.
How did he earn his $50?
Money. His birthday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is my gopher dog, guard dog. I don't know. She wasn't doing her job that day. She might have been resting from the day. But she likes to herd. She's a little snorky. She loves to herd the cows. She loves, I don't know where she got it from. Chase squirrels.
What's her name? I was thinking of her.
Haley. Hey, you should be able to hear me at your place hollering at her.
I'm busy hollering at mine.
Yeah. So that's it. Anybody got any questions? I think, I went out the other morning, the gophers, it's so hot and everything, the gophers surrendered. Put a white flag up, and they had enough.
David, when we first moved here, we tried those smoke bomb things
Yeah.
that you drop down in there.
Yeah.
We dropped one in a hole, and that gopher threw it back out at us. Have you ever heard of that? He threw it out at us. I mean, we just stood there with our mouths open, looking at it, thinking about it. It reminded me of Caddyshack, you know? Caddyshack.
This
It's
is
true.
not Thursday.
It's true. He threw it back at us.
They do have, she's talked about the smoke bombs. They do have smoke bombs, and I didn't bring it today, but they have a deal where you can back your truck or your tractor up, your truck or your car, up to the hole, and it's an extension that you put on. It's a hose, and it puts on your tailpipe, and it goes down into the hole. Yeah, I bought it just when Trapper Day comes. And so you can gas them by that way, and you can actually put gas. They have some type. You can hire these guys to come and put something down in the hole, and then they light it, and it blows up.
No.
Yes. It goes down, and it causes an explosion inside their hole.
That's what I want. I want that.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions?
The cutter worm, the cutter ants. I know what they are, and I've seen them before, and they strip the tree. But I've noticed them, you know, I told you the deer were eating like 4 o'clock. When it's not the deer, they stripped them down, and I saw them across the driveway. Seeing the leaves when they're little. I cannot find the hands. I can't see them. I've seen them before, years before.
You go out and set up the night.
No, is that when I do?
Yeah.
And I followed.
Sometimes they come out in the daytime, sometimes 9, 10 o'clock, and you have to follow them from wherever they are to wherever they go to find the hole.
Okay, because I haven't seen them, and I can't find the hole even with the gold.
Pat, you got a lot of money?
Go out at 10.
You got enough?
Nothing was.
Call Trapper Dave. Gotta have money though.
But it's stripped the inside
Yes.
of my Rose Sharon.
Cutter ants and armyworms. I'm telling you, if you get armyworms, and you know, I called my hay guy last year. I had them early, and you saw my field. They were already eaten 1/3 of my field, and I had a lot of money invested in fertilizer and lime and all that stuff. And so I called him. He said, "Well, my spray rig's broke down. The spray rig's been broke down for like 3 years now." And used to I could call him and he would be on it. Obviously, he doesn't need money right now. So you know, I really scrambled, but I had not forked out the $3,000 or $4,000 for a sprayer yet. Mike Henderson bought a used one and he uses his quite frequently, so I'm sure I could borrow his. And then Joe's little rig works pretty good. It's just time consuming, and but don't let anybody tell you that, oh, well, wait till tomorrow. And it usually happens on a Saturday or Sunday when you find something and nobody's open. You can't get the product, or there's an infestation going around the county and there's no product, and it's on order. Well, guess what? My hay guy keeps a bottle. He buys like an extra bottle every year and puts away for the next year. So I was able to get a bottle from him one year and had to pay him back. It's not, most of that stuff is not, you don't have to have a license to buy it. Some of the products you do, but most of them you don't. But don't let them kid you and say, you can wait till tomorrow, you can wait till it rains, you can do this or do that. If you don't react and react quickly, if you've got a small field, it will be gone. It will be gone. That's how fast they move. That's why they call them armyworms, because it's like an army. And it's freaky when you get out there and you get amongst them, like on that little sprayer on RTV, and you just see all these little boogers just shaking and falling off to the ground. And you just realize how many of them there are, because when I first looked at them, I thought, oh, there's just a few. You know, they were at the top. No problem, right? But I know that there was a large area that was eaten. So when I got on the RTV and it started making the vibrations, I went, oh my God. They were way out in my field. They just hadn't heated yet. But they were out into the field, still where the green was. And then one guy said, well, if you got that little sprayer, just strike it. You know, skip a roll, skip it. Yeah, okay, they're going to eat this up, and then they're going to get over here, and hopefully they'll die before they get to the next section. So you'd have like a striped football field or something out there with dead stripes, and you have green and dead and green. But don't hesitate if you got armyworms, unless you just don't care, and then you just let them go. But it's a lot of money, and if you never had them, you will have them if you have a coastal. Like I say, Bahia grass is not a big deal. They don't like the more rough stuff. If you got a big field, now to get my hay field, I've got 26 acres, 11-acre hay field. Only one time have they ever got on the other fields. Those are pasture fields. I don't cut them, the cows graze them, and they're tougher. The grass is tougher, it's aged, and they really don't hit that as much. But my hay field, I'm just about there. They're going to be there. Last year it was twice. It was real early. I don't know how early. It was way before anybody was talking about armyworms. I had them, and I was kind of shocked that they were that early because they're called fall armyworms. So, and I don't know if y'all noticed. Did anybody notice the color of my barn? The video? Who? Beige. And you know why? I think the Georgia Peach talked about that. And the reason that Richard told me that when we were going to do this little Carlene things for y'all amusement, come here and think we're going to do Armyworms, and then we'll start talking about how this is. That was just kind of see if y'all are paying attention to what's going on. So I don't know if you noted in the clip that the little Georgia Peach talked about. My barn is a beige color. The moths, like trees, they like light-colored buildings. So what I've done lately, I said, guess what? Where do they always start? They always start by my barn and work out. So now I'm letting all the moss and dirty stuff grow on my barn instead of cleaning it. So it changed colors. Okay, anybody got any more questions? I hope y'all enjoyed it.